Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be your moderator for this panel. This is the Legacy in Motion from First to Futures Building Lasting Change for Women in Aviation. I have two panelists today. I'm going to just read a short bio for you to introduce you, and then we're going to jump right into the meat of it. Um, the first panelist is Jacqueline Ruiz. She's an internationally known, award winning author, speaker, entrepreneur, and publishing magnate. She founded the award winning public relations firm JJR Marketing, followed by a publishing company, Fig Factor Media, and she has authored 37 books and published over 500 books for authors in 34 countries. Jacqueline is a champion of aviation and youth and as a Latina pilot, she is among the less than 1% of Latina pilots in the country of the estimated 7% of all certified female pilots in the USA. She promotes the aviation industry through her multi volume anthology series, Latinas in Aviation. She has partnered with two aviation museums to create permanent exhibits devoted to Latina aviators and has helped pioneer an aviation scholarship at the College of DuPage, her alma mater. Our second panelist, Dr. Mindy Howard, is the founder and CEO of Cosmic Girls Foundation, an organization that seeks to nurture girls through STEM education and skills training to become astronauts, astrophysicists, and aerospace engineers. After her 21-year career in the oil industry, Dr. Howard created the first and only mental preparedness training program for commercial astronauts called the Inner Space Training. She is also a TEDx and public speaker and is the author of the book Blast Off: Train Like an Astronaut for Success on Earth. Good afternoon, ladies. Welcome to the Women in Aviation Summit Legacy in Motion panel.
Thank you so
Um,
Good
much.
afternoon.
just diving straight in, what first inspired you to pursue your aviation aeronautics careers? Jacqueline, you want to start off first?
Thank you so much. I experienced some major health issues at 21 and 23 related to cancer,
Oh,
and
wow.
years later, once I've been in remission and clean, I took a discovery flight. I never thought about becoming a pilot ever in my life. I never dreamt about it. I never had it in my radar because people like me that come from where I come from, just it's kind of unattainable, from a small town in Mexico. And I I took that discovery flight, and for me, it was more of a spiritual journey. I don't do this commercially. I do this as a sports and private pilot. I don't really, my pursuit was never to pursue it, commercially. But there was something in that discovery flight that changed the paradigm. And for me, the spiritual connection was feeling closer to God, when I was piloting, or riding that plane. And it just activated something in me that I didn't know I had. And I think it's so important to get exposed to things like this in your life, because you never know which one of those things is going to resonate with you. And for me, aviation sort of chose me. And I said yes, and I surrendered, and have been flying since 2015 as a sports, primarily as a sports pilot. And I just absolutely love that. And that's how basically I came to the world of aviation.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Mindy, what's your
I'm almost embarrassed to admit after that incredible story from
Oh.
Jacqueline, what started me off, which was a cheesy TV show called The $6 Million Man. He was an astronaut, and I was in love with him, and I was 6 years old, and for some reason I couldn't get space out of my head, even after I could get him out of my head. So that's what started my interest in space, and then as I got a bit older, into my teens, people were saying, "Well, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to get into space?" And I thought, I don't know, actually. Maybe I need to look into this. And because I lived in the States, in New York at the time, I was able to look into becoming an astronaut via NASA. Not everybody lives in the U.S. and or in Europe or some of these other space agencies, but in my case, that was a natural path to think about. And then I ended up uh, first trying to become a pilot for the Air Force, or because I heard that you could either be a pilot or a scientist. So I thought, let's try to be a pilot. So I applied to the Air Force Academy. I was told I was an inch too short. Of course, since then they've changed the regulations, but at the time I was an inch too short, and that was a I was out of the question then. And then I thought, okay, I guess if I become an engineer or a scientist, I could try this way to become a mission specialist. And ended up getting my bachelor's and master's in engineering and in industrial engineering, and then I was told I needed a PhD, and I thought, oh, how long is that going to take? And they said, oh, only about 6 years. And I thought, whoa, that's a long time. Maybe I can do my PhD somewhere else that it doesn't take so long, a quick and dirty PhD. And someone said, well, I heard in Europe it only takes 4 years. So I thought, that's where I got to go. So I went to a university, a technical university here in the Netherlands, called Technical University of Eindhoven, got my PhD, and then applied to NASA, and got very close down to the last 200 people. But then I was told, then it becomes a lottery. And then I was not picked for the next round, which was pretty devastating. But I haven't given up yet. So there's a whole other story that goes behind that, but I'll stop here anyway, and went and say that it went from the $6 million man onward.
Okay, well, inspiration is inspiration. So whether it's from a health crisis or whether it's from, falling in love with a TV character, which, by the way, coming further on in our discussion, there is going to be discussion around that. So um, that's good for your inspirations. Next, what are the first signs you know or you've seen that a girl is interested in aviation, and when do you think those first signs start to appear? Mindy, for you, it was a TV show, $6 Million Man. But if you're looking on today's young
Yeah.
girls, what do you think? What do you see is mostly their inspiration or motivation, and when do you start seeing those signs
Well,
that a girl
we've
would be
we've kind of
interested?
investigated this because the we need to find out about our pipeline as well. And the girls, I mean, there's interest in space, as young as 4 or 5 years old. We've seen by girls like wearing t-shirts with rockets on them and things like that. And it's only around that time that many of these girls start to, like, not, I won't say lose their interest, but get discouraged. And there's a whole wave of girls kind of that get discouraged between 5 and 10 years old. And then there's a whole wave of girls that get discouraged kind of between, let's say, 11 and 18, for different reasons. And so we were trying, we hear about a lot of girls that are interested, but we also hear that, it just takes one or two negative comments from a teacher or somebody, around them that says, like, this is not really for girls, or, are you sure you shouldn't try something a little bit easier? And then they start doubting and thinking, I don't see anybody else like me like this. And it takes a pretty strong minded girl at an early age to kind of stick with something, even though she doesn't see anybody else like herself around her who likes the same kind of stuff. And there's so many different obstacles kind of along the 5 to 18 years old barriers, and we're trying to sort of help them stay in the game. But unfortunately, a lot end up leaving far too soon before they can really see how cool it is. But we have seen, we've seen girls, we hear about girls who are nowadays, with, it sounds like I'm so old, with the internet. It's, girls can see a lot of imagery that they couldn't see before, like back in the day when I was younger. Like, I didn't see lots of female astronauts, and you hear about things a lot more, and parents tell their kids more than ever, I would say, in the States. But I'm also dealing with a lot of girls from other places in the world where they don't get the positive reinforcement from their community, from their parents, and things like that. And this is a real shame, because here are so many incredible girls who would be, fantastic astrophysicists or engineers, and or pilots, but they're not. They don't even hear about it, or they don't
Yeah.
get nurtured. So yeah, there's a lot of places, unfortunately, where women jump out of or girls get out of that pipeline, unfortunately.
Okay, so I'm gonna pose this question to Jacqueline. You have, as I read in your bio, helped to establish a scholarship at your alma mater, right? But that's college. So with everything that Mindy was saying, what do you see that can be done to encourage children so that between the 5 and 18 age year group before they get to college, what can be done earlier so that they say, oh, let me take, I'm interested in being in aviation or aerospace. um let me look up from now, what scholarships there are or how I can get into it. But at 5, early ages, what do you think are some of the things that you can be done, start to be done from those early ages to encourage children, the pipeline all the way from elementary to when they're in high school, ready to look on, okay, what major am I going to choose?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question because you know what? The earlier you start, the more that you create that hunger, to learn more and to get exposed. I think there's a lot of different ways to do that, and I'm doing it from the publishing side, not only as a founder of Latinas in Aviation, capturing over 116 stories in 5 volumes across, from Latina aviators and engineers, mechanics, all over the world. So storytelling is a beautiful way to start, creating that motivation to say, you know what, I want to look. I want to be like her. She looks like me. I want to achieve what she's achieved, right? So when you share your story and you document it, it's a beautiful way to do that. And on the publishing side as well, through the theme of storytelling and in documenting history, I've actually been contracted to do a 9 book children's book series for STEM, featuring a variety of characters precisely for elementary school, and to
Okay.
get them excited to you know hear the journeys of these beautiful characters that are made with custom illustrations. So we are doing a 9 book series for a college called WSU Tech in Wichita, and we are completing now book number 4. And all those books in all different areas of STEM or STEAM, as they call it, it would be amazing. And I'm also working with a museum, College Park Aviation Museum, to create a beautiful children's book of a young Latina and the dog Arrow, following this beautiful journey, learning about the history of aviation. And when we do our annual aviation festival, Latinas in Aviation, at our permanent exhibit there, we bring out the community, and the authors of the book have an opportunity to do hands-on activities with young girls in the community. So getting exposed, creating storytelling opportunities, exposing them to beautiful books. I mean, they love getting their books autographed by the authors, taking photos. And the most important thing is that a young person, doesn't matter where they come from, they can see themselves realized in someone that has already achieved it, and they can see themselves as somebody that is can achieve that, and something that is attainable. And that I do that through storytelling, and that's what I'll do till the day I die, and I love it.
Okay, awesome. um Mindy, you mentioned, well, both of you mentioned that there are a lot of obstacles that girls face to get into the aviation aeronautics industries. What are some of those obstacles? Or if you could give like the top 2 or 3 obstacles that they face.
I
Mindy,
think
you want to start first? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that I think the biggest one is that, I mean, Jacqueline was saying that that girls don't see other girls that look like them, or people that look like. So it starts off with other girls, and then it's other girls who look like them. So that's kind of two obstacles built into one. But then I think if you were the only girl in the room, and you're hearing comments, maybe snide comments from the guys maybe that you're doing projects with, like, you know uh, how much does a girl actually know about engineering or whatever. You feel like you're always having to prove yourself. You feel like the eyes of the world are looking at you and your performance, and sometimes there's a lot of added pressure that that is given to girls, unfortunately, in these situations, and they don't do as well maybe as the boys do. It's called the stereotype threat, where actually there's a lot of research about this saying that because of the added pressure, actually, and the fact that they need to use their brain capacity to kind of perform well in front of others, they're not using other capacity in terms of learning what they need to be learning and doing everything else. They're all trying to look good and to make sure they don't look silly in front of the boys, but unfortunately they're not always gaining the concepts that they need to gain because they're spending too much time worrying about stuff that boys don't have to worry about.
Right.
So that takes time and attention away, and unfortunately girls suffer for that reason. So I think both of these reasons are pretty big detractors, and then when we start to get into your teenage years, it's you're talking about peer pressure, and girls might be on Instagram, and what's cool on Instagram with hair and makeup is not necessarily what a lot of aviation girls might be into all the time, or maybe some other time later on in life. But lots of them are nerdy, a little bit geeky, and they're not interested in that stuff, but they don't know anybody else that is interested in learning how to launch rockets, so they feel a bit alone in their journey. There's nothing worse for a teenage person, especially a teenage girl, is not to have peers around her that she feels comfortable sharing this stuff with. So it's kind of a lonely road for a lot of girls, and so yeah, we need to sort of build a community where she doesn't feel alone, where she feels like she can share her passions and her nerdiness, and and it's cool, and it's seen as like really cool from by other girls. So there's a lot of that which is missing for a lot of girls, and that's kind of what we're trying to create with the Cosmic Girls Foundation, so that she doesn't walk out and she sees other like-minded girls, like herself, who are into the same sort of stuff.
Okay. But based on the whole stereotypical thing, one question I have is, could it be that there are girls who are interested both in the girly makeup stuff
Of
and
course.
the
Yeah,
science stuff, but because it's not seen as cool, they push down their desire or their want to do, the aviation and aeronautics because it's cooler. It's seen as being more cool to, the makeup, the hair, the dress, and all of that kind of stuff.
sure.
Um, so that brings me to, as far as the obstacles and as far as people discouraging young girls. We know that aeronautics aviation is has been traditionally a very male centered because of the fact that they're saying, oh, girls may not be good at sciences, math, physics, the studies that you need to do in order to break into those industries. Now, where do you think the biggest pushback comes from, and negativity comes from? Is it from people closest to them, like family members, or would it be like external people, like as you said, the friends, the teachers, just people outside of their community circle? What do you think is, Jackie, do you want to start with that? Where do you think the biggest pushback for these girls come from?
Well, I think one of the biggest pushbacks is, to be honest with you, themselves. Sometimes we need to provide more confidence to these young aviators or aspiring, whether they go into engineering or aviation or any other fields that are predominantly, dominated by men, because as we build this confidence to say, you know what, the airplane, for example, doesn't know how you look like. The airplane knows precision. And sometimes we get so hung up on where we come from and who we are and what are our limitations, that if we are able to provide programs, not only to expose them to people that have already overcome those obstacles, but if we are able to expose them to resources and programs that build their confidence, that I think starts with the self. You then starts to build up, and it doesn't matter what people say, what kind of pushback you have. What I see as obstacles too is sometimes not knowing what those resources are. And if you don't know what the resources are, and you don't have anybody in your community as a role model, and you don't have that support, therefore, if you don't know anything about a certain area, you're not going to have the support, because people around you will be incapable of supporting you if they have no idea, sometimes how to speak the language. We find that a lot with our immigrant families. And we also, get exposed to, areas that, like, they're not supporting what that future, that we're pursuing. So how can we get these girls to feel more confidence? How can we get them exposed to, internships and programs and events where they can see themselves doing those activities and try different things? Because the moment they start trying out, different, exposing them to different things, like parts of engineering, parts of, the cosmic world, the universe, the virtual reality, all these different things that activate the other part of your brain, it's fascinating because it opens up a whole world for them. But I also see, to be honest with you, I mean, not only did I establish a scholarship for my alma mater, but I also have given almost $20,000 of my own funds from the publishing company to young aviators around the world, in the United States, Brazil, South America. And another big obstacle is the money. How do they get the resources and the support, the scholarships, the access for them to bridge the gap between, hey, now I know, I recognize that I've overcome my own obstacles. I see people that look like me. I'm exposing to this, and I love this, this world. How can I bridge the gap between that and making it a reality? And to do that, you need funds, you need connections, you need mentors, you need guidance, you need somebody to say, hey, let me open up this door for you, to know that if you go through this program, like you were saying, Dr. Howard, you were saying, how you try to, you found something, found you, right? This passion, and you're like, what is the path to least resistance to make this happen? A lot of these young ladies might not have that ability to say, how do I even do that? So I think all of us, continuing to expose them to all these beautiful things and stories and all of that, and giving them resources, is kind of the way to overcome a lot of those challenges.
So, as far as resources, is it that, and I know the internet is there, which has opened up research, and it has opened up the ability for people to get more information at, at a faster rate than, say 10, 20 years before. So,
Mhm.
is it that people are not doing the research to find these things, or is it that the resources are not re- as much out there as they need to be, as far as advertised, and as far as making it easy for people to find the information that these things are there? Where do you see more work needs to be put in by people who are interested, like for their children to find information on how they can become a part of the industry, or does more work need to be done by people currently in the industry to get the information out there? Dr. Howard, do you want to
Yeah,
start off
please
with
tell me,
that one?
Mindy. Yeah,
Because I
sure.
know your organization, does a lot of that.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. It's funny, I think there's people who just don't read. Like even our own website, which gives step by step instructions about how to go and, let's say, enter our community. So sometimes I think, people are just so excited. They're like, they see a post, they want to react, and they're like, tell me what I have to do. I want to get involved in the community. They're excited. It's like, you need to read the website and it tells you everything, but they don't read. So, sometimes it's a little bit of that, but I think, my experience in trying to sort of do my own research to try to figure out, what I needed to know from when I think often like stuff is available, like they say, oh, it's on the internet, or NASA's has their own sort of pages, or it's out there, but it's often not the same level that you're interested in. Sometimes it's general concepts. Other times it's stuff for teachers and not stuff for people who want to. So you have to kind of find your own, you know, um, community of people, first of all, at your level that, you think, oh, these people are probably searching for similar stuff that I am. And I think that's why it helps to have like a peer group that you can talk about it, like, in the Cosmic Forum, which is our sort of online community. Girls are saying, hey, I'm looking for a book that helps me analyze the constellations, and I need to do this for a project. Does anybody know how to get that? And then some girl will say, oh yeah, I just read a really good book. So that's kind of helpful, because there's so much stuff out there at so many different levels. It's hard to find typically what you want in the form that you want it. That's my opinion. But I think other times people are just so excited. They're like, they want answers, and they want them now. And I think they're not researching so much stuff anymore, and they just want to go, and their peer community can actually help them find a lot of things. But I have to say, it's hard to go and find what you want at the level you want it, typically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, Mindy, about how you got your inspiration for getting into aeronautics. So, one thing I wanted to ask is, and I think Jacqueline said it about images, seeing, girls seeing images
Mhm.
of themselves as pilots, or as astronauts. Where do they see these images? Is it only online? Is it in movies, TV, on ads on bus stops? And, where do you think these images need to be? Because, yes, we know that young girls, young children spend a lot of time on the internet, but that's not the only place that they spend their time. So, where else do you think these images can be so that girls can see, hey, let me become a pilot, let me become astronaut.
Who is the question for?
Anyone,
Um,
Jacqueline?
Jacqueline.
yeah, I mean, I think they see it in, books, when they go to the library and all of a sudden they see a book that, again, people that look like them, they see and they get inspired, maybe an activity book. They also see it on TV. They see it on, when they do special segments of people that have achieved, certain things. They also, like with the local community and events, immersive experiences where they invite them out, or many times, museums curate experiences to get kids, exposed to do that. And what you were saying about the previous question is like, I think both the entities, the organizations, the nonprofits, the and the community, they need to both do the work to be able to do that, to bridge that gap between, what they see and what is offered, you know. But I think those are many of the different ways that they can get exposed to how their future dream could look like.
Which is
Okay.
kind of a shame, not to bring too many politics into the discussion, but
Mm.
so a lot of this imagery is nowadays also being taken down,
Mhm.
and in America, at NASA, people who are making firsts and all of these incredible, people that pretty much had the hard way to get to where they are not being showcased anymore, and I find this really upsetting. So yes, it's online, you can find this information, but I do not, I'm not happy with the way this current administration in the US is going to take away a lot of these, really incredibly important pieces of history that we have, people who have gotten to be where they are, who, yeah, who are these role models that we're talking about. So I just wanted to say I am not in agreement with what is going on, and I think we need more of it because it's so important, on every level. To keep the momentum going, for people who are not your typical, whether it's women or people of color or Latinas, doesn't matter. We don't want to hide this, but this is unfortunately the direction things are going in now. So I hope this changes soon.
Okay. I do have, I guess, a kind of suggestion that where I see there is a opportunity to get information in front of these girls. I have experience for a while working with a public school system, right, an elementary, and they in the states, and they have a program in each school called specials, where instead apart from math and reading, they may have like a music or dance or art. Um, in my all my time of working in the school system, in this public school system, I've only seen one elementary school that had an aviation special. So I think there's opportunity to get into the schools. It's usually a half hour program, a half hour class that introduces the industry or whatever it is to the children of all the grades. I think that's a big opportunity to get in front, to get that information in front of children starting from the elementary school system.
Good
So I don't
suggestion.
know. That's something that you guys may want to explore, but instead of just doing it on your own, you can get Mindy. You could get the Cosmic Girls Foundation into the schools somehow.
Would
Jacqueline, you
love
could,
that.
So,
Yeah.
um, so another question I had, just to make it a little bit different. Did either of you feel ever like quitting aviation? Mindy.
I would say no, no. My dream has, is more than 50 years now. It has taken different forms. I have morphed into a different kind of ways to get into space. First starting one way, like via NASA, then becoming Dutch so I could try the European Space Administration, then turning into commercial space, then becoming an astronaut trainer and coach, and now leading a foundation who's trying to inspire other girls. But I'm still going to get there. And I can tell you that's going to happen hopefully very soon. But it's 50 years and counting, or actually, it's longer. And
Okay.
I'm not
So
giving up.
you've pivoted.
So
You've pivoted. You haven't given up and you never wanted to
I've
give up.
pivoted over
You
and over and
pivoted many
over.
times, in order to get up that ladder. Jacqueline, have you ever
No, you know
thought
what? I
that,
think once you get the aviation bug, it never leaves you. I There's not
okay,
a single day of my life that I don't think about the three-dimensional space above us, and now, as a publisher too, elevating and connecting the stories of so many women in aviation, and now doing the children's books and producing that, and in that space of creativity. I mean, like, aviation is part of my blood, and I will always be there, maybe from different perspectives. I'm thinking about doing a board game, to
Oh,
teach
wow.
kids about aviation. I've produced about seven of them already for different things and storytelling and things. But it's something that has transformed the way I think. And I'm about to uh, basically interview astronaut Charlie Duke, who was the youngest person that stepped foot on the moon in October. I was This past weekend. I was with one of the former NASA chief engineers, Evelyn Miralles, who came to see me speak at an event. So it's like aviation is all around me. The stories, the connections. It keeps bringing me back, whether I'm flying or not. It's just absolutely amazing. So I'll do this till the day I die.
okay, so great segue. What are the two things, let's say, you want us to know about what it is that you do? What are two thoughts you want to leave with us today, that we really leave here and say, okay, I never thought about things from this point of view, but what do you want to drive home to us today? Mindy, you want to start?
I think I would encourage parents and people who are working with kids to just realize, sometimes their words, and how important, something that they might say in passing that they think they're actually trying to help someone is actually not helping somebody, and to be giving these supportive comments, because you don't know how, one little positive comment can give someone a boost, literally. And I think it's important for people to realize, like, just saying things about, whether it's like, wow, you're incredible, how do you keep going and find the excitement in doing these things, I'm so inspired by what you're doing. that could just lift somebody so high, and it could be exactly the boost that they need when they've had a bad day, or somebody's said to them, maybe you shouldn't study aerospace, that they think, no, I should. So I would like people to really think about, yeah, their words to and how they impact other people, and how to be a positive force, versus maybe not even saying something at all, but just to get more girls excited. And I think that kind of leads to the yeah, it kind of leads to sort of the next piece, which is like the girls empowerment piece, which for me is so important because yeah, basically you need to build these systems and structures for girls to feel at home and safe, and I think this is what we're doing, and my I guess plea out there is to go and say, if you know girls who would like to learn a little more and to get part of a community, for them to join our community, because I think we can offer a lot to these girls, from peer to peer support, to free online learning, and potentially also a chance to go to space for the winner of our competition. So I think, I would just say, check us out. We would love to have any girl from anywhere in the world join us, but be careful of your words. They can be used to lift or to not to lift. So come and join us, and we'd love to have you.
Okay, Jacqueline, what are your 2 points you want to drive home with us today?
So my two key takeaways for anyone, any of the young girls looking to get and stay in this amazing world of aviation. Number one, share your story, share your narrative, because if you don't share this, no one else will share your narrative. You have to be as authentic and as aligned with your purpose as you can, and recognize when you need to pivot and we need to change something to get you to the next part of your dream. I think that's super important, that you continue to document your journey, document your story, so that in this same journey you can inspire and elevate other people, and likewise share the motivation that you have from listening to other people's stories, and always get exposed to what other people are doing, as far as their narratives and how they're changing the world, and how they're creating resources and creating motivation, inspiration, so that you can achieve your dreams. I think that's super important. So that really the importance of narratives, the importance of documenting storytelling, and the importance of continue to elevate one another by sharing and being brave enough to share our stories in any ecosystem, whether it be books, TV, radio, print, magazines, events, local organizations, whatever the case might be. But just the power of stories and the power of sharing that story is, I think, one thing that can help us elevate all of us in the industry and beyond, and especially for the next generation. And then a phrase that I'm known for around the world as a pilotina, a Latina pilot, it's taking off is optional and landing on your dreams is mandatory. And if we internalize this phrase, we know that if we decide to pursue a career in aviation and any related fields, we are then committed to landing on those dreams. And this means not giving up. This means that you will not give up until you find anything you need to, and you land like butter on those dreams. And then through that, you're going to be able to help motivate and inspire so many more people. So landing is mandatory.
Okay. Thank you very much to our amazing panelists, Jacqueline and Mindy. Thank you for sharing your time, your information, and your passion, because you two are obviously very passionate about what it is that you do for the aviation and aeronautics industries. And, just to cement that, always research. If there's something you want to find out about aviation, you have little girls that are interested in the industry, research, be encouraging to them. And for those little girls, share your stories, because you never know who you could help by sharing your story. So I want to thank you both again for being such amazing panelists. And to all the viewers, I hope you enjoyed the panel.
Thank you.